Welcome back once again into this new discussion series. Today we are going to discuss a famous poem written by S.T. Coleridge, and the name of the book is The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. Before going into the book, we must have to remember some of the ideas that S.T. Coleridge has given in this book a supernatural touch. In fact, the characters, the environment appears to all of us quite mysterious and eerie. The book shows us the mariners or the sailor who tells the story to the wedding guest. In fact, we must have to remember the background picture that there is a marriage ceremony in a hall, and in front of the marriage ceremony, the sailor or the mariner is waiting to tell or to express the heartbound story of his own heart to others. So therefore he is willing to express, but no one is there to listen his experiences. So therefore whenever he sees that three wedding guests are coming, then he captures or grabs one of the guest hand, and then the mariner begins his entire story. So this is the setting, and whenever the interaction is going on, the speaker is expressing his story in such a way that all the characters appear to us quite charming, at the same time quite fearful, and the atmosphere really quite strange to all of us. So this is the setting, and if we look into the publication date, we must have to remember that this poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, was published in the lyrical ballad of 1798. Though today we are going to discuss the text of 1834, and several times the book, in fact the poem was revised, and so therefore this text 1934 appears to all of us quite lucrative. So without wasting much more time, let's begin the first part. Uh, Actually, this book or this poem is quite large, and it has seven parts. So it is really a laborious task to explain line by line. We will try to segmentize our discussion. So today we will discuss part 1. Though for your information, I want to tell you that there are some chapters or some lines which seemingly may appear quite difficult to explain. So I will try to trace on those aspects, but whereas those parts which are quite easy one, and which can be understood by going through the poem, so I will try to skip those part, but overall I will try to maintain the entire meaning of the poem quite clearly, so that all of you can understand, and all of you can have a apprehension of this poem. So without wasting much more time, let's begin the first part of the poem, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner. The first part. It is an ancient mariner, and he stopped one of the three. By thy long grey beard and glittering eye, now wherefore stoppest thou me? So this is the fourth line, and it clearly exposes, or it clearly sets the exposition of this entire poem. We can see that there is a mariner, ancient in the sense that the mariner is quite aged old, and he is really strange in his own look, and he stopped one of the three. So the three person or the three wedding guests who are going to attend the marriage ceremony, and the mariner grabbed one of the three guest hand, and he tries to express his own heartfelt story to the marine to the one of the guest. By thy long grey beard and glimmering eye, now wherefore stoppest thou me? Then the waiting guest says that wherefore the mariner has stopped the guest. So we can also assume here that by the long grey beard and glittering eyes, that means that the guest or the waiting guest is really overawed to see the long beard and the glittering eye. In fact, these are the charm that ST qualities uses to allure the waiting guest. So here the speaker, I mean the guest, says that wherefore stoppest thou me? He asks the question to the sailor or to the mariner, wherefore the mariner has stopped him, and wherefore or what is the intention of stopping the guest. The bridegroom's doors are opened wide, and I am next to kin. The guests are met, the feast is set. Mayst hear the merry din. So this is the another four line, another next four line. Here just you have to imagine the condition of the hall door where the marriage ceremony is going on. The bridegroom's door are wide open. This means that the wedding guests are really prepared to celebrate the marriage ceremony. Therefore, the doors are opened so that all the audiences, all the guests can enter and take part in the marriage ceremony. Then the wedding guest says that I am next to kin. So the wedding guest is willing to go out from the clutches of the mariner, but is not able to go out from the clutches of the mariner. So therefore, he tries to convince the mariner that I am next to of kin. So I am the relative, close relative of the bridegroom. The guests are met. Just look there into the hall room. All the guests are meeting each other and exchanging their greetings. Even the feast, that means the arrangement of taking feast on the occasion of marriage ceremony are also on their process. Must hear the merry din. Even the entertainer or those people who attended there to entertain, to sing on this occasion, are going through their music, are going through their revelry. He holds him with his skinny hand. There was a ship, quoth he. Hold off, unhand me, grey beard loon. Eftsoon his hand dropped me. He holds him with his skinny hand. So the mariner is holding the wedding guest with his hand, and his hand is really skinny. That means that the mariner is really looking sickly and really looking weird. Maybe he is an unnatural entity. There was a ship, quoth he. Then the mariner, without paying much more attention to the request of the wedding guest, begins his story, and he just begins the story that there was a ship. Hold off, unhand me, grey beard to loon. Then the wedding guest says that just release me, I want to go to attend the marriage ceremony. So he requests the sailor or the mariner to release him. Soon his hand dropped he, and instantly the mariner releases the wedding guest. So therefore the line says that soon, that means immediately his hand dropped he. The mariner released the wedding guest from his clutches. He holds him with his glittering eye. The wedding guest stood still and listens like a 3 years child. The mariner hath his will. He holds him with his glittering eye. Though the mariner releases the wedding guest, but the guest is not at all able to go out to attend the marriage ceremony, and that's because of the glittering eyes. The glittering eyes of the mariner was so lucrative, so alluring that the wedding guest is unable to come out from these powerful clutches, though the clutches is invisible. The wedding guest stood still. So the wedding guest, being released from the clutches of the mariner, stands there still and listens like a 3 years child, and just wait there to listen the story, just like a 3 years old child. So imagine that in your own experiences, you must have learned that those child who have much more imagination, they try to listen stories or fairy tales from their dear ones, from their elder ones. So here the comparison is with an adult wedding guest to a 3 years old child. So the entire imagination, the entire emotion, the entire aspirations and intention of the wedding guest is controlled by the mariner. The mariner hath his will. Then the mariner begin his story. The wedding guest sat on a stone. He cannot choose but hear, and thus spake on that ancient man, the bright-eyed mariner. The wedding guest, therefore, is unable to go out or to move from the place. He is seemingly immovable, and he sat on a stone. He cannot choose but hear. So the wedding guest has no other option, but he is bound to hear. And thus spoke on that ancient man. Then the ancient mariner begins his story. The bright-eyed mariner, the ancient mariner who has eye, and that eye is really bright. And so these are the main characteristics, that the mariner has a bright eye, and with the bright eye he allures the wedding guest, and then he begins his story, and thus the story moves on, and from here on we will enter into the main story that the mariner expresses to the wedding guest. The ship was cheered, the harbour cleared, merrily did we drop, below the kirk, below the hill, below the lighthouse top. So these lines express that the ship is going to begin his journey, and whenever the ship goes out from the harbour, it sees back the churches, the hills and lighthouses, and they all recede by. So the ship is merrily going towards its own destination. On the other hand, those entities or those things which are stagnant on the land recede by. The sun came up upon the left, out of the sea came he, and he shone bright, and on the right went down into the sea. So whenever the ship is going, actually the ship is going to the Antarctica, and so therefore whenever the ship is going towards its destination, the sun appears and then sets down. So here we have some directions that we must have to remember here, because it will help us to actually navigate the proper direction of the poem. The sun came up from the left, so this means that the sun rises from the left, and out of the sea came here, এবং সেই the sun comes out of the sea, and he shone bright and on the right. Then the sun releases his shine, releases his light, and then set again on the right. Higher and higher every day, till over the mast it's known. The wedding guest here beat his breast, and he heard the loud bosom. The higher and higher every day. Gradually, whenever the sea tries to reach to its own destination, the situation is becoming really hot, because every day the sun shines its rays quite brilliantly, and till over the mast at noon. And at the same time, this sun gives light on the mast at noon very brilliantly. The wedding guest here beat his breast, and hearing the story, the wedding guest becomes quite bored. He just tries to attend the marriage ceremony, but he is unable to go. So therefore, the marriage Therefore, the waiting guest here beat his breast after hearing the loud basson, after hearing the music of a flute. But as he is not able to attend, so therefore, in desperation, he he pressed his breast, or he beats his breast. The bride hath passed into the hall, red as a rose is she, nodding their heads before her goes the merry minstrel. The bride is really going into the hall, and he appears to be rosy. That means that maybe the bride has worn some of the dresses which are red in color. Nodding their heads before her goes the merry minstrel. And those persons, or those the guests who came there to entertain by singing, they nod their head before the bride. The wedding guest, he beat his breast, yet he cannot choose but hear. So here, in such a situation, the wedding guest is unable to go. He again beat his breast, but he is bound to listen the entire story of the ancient mariner. And thus spoke on that ancient mariner, the bright-eyed mariner. Again, this bright-eyed mariner began to tell the story. And now the storm blast came, and he was tyrannous and strong. Whenever the ship was going towards its destination, uh, the storm of Ghast came there, and the Ghast was so much tyrannous and so much strong that he stuck with his overtaking wings and chased us to south along. So the power of the wind was so vehement that it helped the ship to go towards south with sloping mast and a dipping prow, as who pursued with yell and blow, still rates the shadow of his foe, and forward bends his head. The ship drove fast, loud roared and blast, and southward, yeah, we fled. So this says that the process of hunting, for example, that whenever a lion hunts someone, so he chases someone. That means that he's actually running behind his prey. Similarly, here the wind is pursuing the ship. That means that the ship is going ahead and the wind is going behind, as if the wind is pursuing the ship, and whenever the wind is pursuing the ship, the wind makes some yell and blow, but the ship is bound to react with the power of the wind. So therefore, as per the direction of the wind, the ship goes southward. And now there came doth mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold, and ice mast high came floating by, as green as emerald. So whenever the ship is going on and going on due to the gust of the wind, so one day the ship reached to a place where they were surrounded by mist and snow, and it grew wondrous cold, and the atmosphere became quite cold and quite cool, and ice mast high came floating by, and ice or iceberg which are quite high and which are just like a mast high, they came floating by as green as emerald. And these ice or these iceberg seems to the mariners or to the onboard mariners quite green, just like emerald. And though the drifts, the snowy cliffs did send a dismal scene, nor shapes of men nor a beast we ken, the ice was all between. So this is quite easy one. Here the scenario is that where the ship is, there the atmosphere is quite snowy. All around the snowy cliffs are seen, and there is none, no beast was there, and no living being was there. So this was a really dismal scene. This was really a dreadful scene. The ice was there, the ice was there. The ice was all around. It cracked and growled and roared and howled like noises in a sound. So, as I have mentioned to all of you, that the uh, area or the location where the ship is now is really full of iceberg. So, everywhere the mariners can see ice or iceberg. So therefore the line says that the ice was here, the ice was there. The ice was all around. Around the ship there were only ice and ice. It cracked and growled and roared and howled. So whenever the ices cracked or whenever the ices get snatched away from its main body, it makes a sound of roaring sound. It makes a growling sound like noises in a sound. So these are the sound that the ice makes. At length did cross the albatross. Through the fog it came, as if it had been a Christian soul. We held it in God's name. So at this moment, as there was no trace of any kind of animals or any kind of human being, but suddenly there appears an albatross. Albatross is a certain kind of bird who has a long wing. Through the long fog it came, and the albatross appeared there behind the fog, as if it had been a Christian soul, and it seems to all of the mariners just like a Christian soul, just like a true Christian soul. So it is quite propitious symbol to the mariner that it may bring some kind of good fortune, some kind of magical touch in their life. We held it in God's name. So then we all the mariners held that creature, the albatross, by the name of God. It ate the food it never had ate, and around and round it flew. The ice did split with a thunder fit. The hillsmen steered us through, and whenever the albatross was following us, the mariners gave some of the food, and then the albatross fed itself with those food. So the line says that it ate the food it never had ate. So we gave the albatross some of the food that probably the albatross in his life had never tasted. And around it flew, and the albatross was circling around our ship. The ice did split and a thunder fit. Gradually, the ice melted and the atmosphere became quite good. The hillsman steered us through. Then the hillsman or the driver of the ship, the gradually steering the ship towards our own destination. And a good south wind sprang up behind. The albatross did follow, and every day for good or play came to the mariner's hollow. So we have learned that the albatross is truly a sign of goodness, and probably the albatross brought some of the magical touch in the life of the mariners, and the albatross is responsible for change of the entire atmosphere. So what we can see in this line, that the change of the atmosphere, and a good south wind sprang up behind. Suddenly there appear a good sound wind that is quite helpful, uh, and that is quite beneficial for the ship. The albatross did follow, and the albatross just went on following us, and every day for food or play came to the mariner's hollow, and every day for the sake of food or for the sake of entertainment, the albatross came to the mariner's cove, the mariner's hollow, or the mast of the ship. In mist or cloud, on mast or shroud, It paused for Vespers 9, while all night through fog smoke white glimmered the white moonshine. So the albatross is following the ship for 9 days, and whenever following, the weather was misty or cloudy, that was no problem for the albatross. He just went on following the ship. Whilst all the night through fog and smoke white glimmered the white moonshine, and whenever the albatross is following, then the white moon glimmered in the sky. So this is a good sign that the atmosphere is gradually becoming normal for sailor to sail. God save the ancient mariner from the friends that plague thee us. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. God save thee, ancient mariner, from the friends. God save thee, ancient mariner, from the fiends that plague thee thus. Why lookest thou so? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. Here the wedding guest is asking the question to the ancient mariner, why lookest thou so? So why the mariner is looking so sickly? But before asking the question, the wedding guest said, God save the ancient mariner from the fiends that plague thee thus. So here the wedding guest wishes good luck to the ancient mariner and blesses that so that he can come out from that inimical condition, from that obstacle situation. And then the wedding guest asked, why lookest thou so? So why is the wedding ancient mariner is looking so sick? With my crossbow I shot the albatross. Then as an answer, the ancient mariner says that it is the cause of it is the cause of myself that I shot the albatross. So the ancient mariner struck the albatross, and these brought radical changes in the life of the whole ship. So we will discuss in part 2 the another segment of this series.